Hello, welcome back to our channel. Today we dive into a chilling turn of events in Salem as Thomas faces a horrific car accident that leaves his family shattered and the town on edge, sparking urgent questions about his fate and whether this storyline signals a shocking exit without recast options on the table. Thomas' nightmare begins. Next week's episodes center on Thomas storming away after a blowout with Chad, only to dart into the street as screeching tires and horrified shouts freeze everyone in place, a moment that the promo frames as the instant everything changes for the DeMera family. The clip sets up a harrowing aftermath, implying Thomas is rushed to the hospital with serious injuries as Salem braces for impact and Chad and Jennifer reel from the consequences of one impulsive second. Will Thomas die? Speculation is exploding across fan spaces and spoiler hubs, with some posts going as far as claiming Thomas dies after being struck, though those claims remain unverified and sensational in tone compared to official teasers. What the on-air preview clearly supports is a severe accident and urgent medical crisis, with the camera language pushing viewers to fear the worst even as the show keeps outcomes concealed until the episode drop. Susan's ominous warning. In parallel, Susan Banks races to Stephanie Johnson with a dire warning that something dangerous is about to happen, reinforcing the sense that Salem is under an immediate, unseen threat that converges on multiple characters at once. The show has teased Susan's heightened intuitions this arc before, and her alarm here functions as narrative foreshadowing that syncs with the sudden street catastrophe. The Horton town scare chaos. The town's Halloween festivities become a powder keg. Alex Kiriakis shouts a warning and physically shoves Cat Green out of the path of a knife-wielding attacker, turning himself into the shield that prevents a stabbing in the square. In the melee, Alex winds up on the ground as the scene fractures into overlapping Christcat tumbling to safety, Stephanie rushing in panic, and the threat of a blade escalating the terror in front of stunned onlookers. The pumpkin slingshot backfires. Layered into the pandemonium is a prank spiraling out of control. Thomas and Rachel prepare a pumpkin launch trap aimed at Cat, but the chaos of a knife scare, Alex's intervention, and split-second movements send the danger ricocheting in unpredictable directions. The setup hints that a large projectile fired under tension can injure the wrong person, fueling guilt, accusations, and fractured loyalties and the fallout. Alex's condition after impact. The square's second crisis centers on Alex, who appears unconscious as Stephanie kneels over him, underscoring that the Halloween incident isn't merely a mischief beat but a genuine mass casualty scare with consequences. While the preview stops short of specific diagnoses, the urgency of Stephanie's reaction and the editing imply Alex could be dealing with a concussion or worse, adding medical stakes that parallel Thomas's emergency. Chad versus Thomas erupts. Before the accident, Chad clocks that Cat is the intended target and turns on Thomas, igniting a father-son confrontation that detonates at the worst possible time. The rift intensifies when Thomas, having seen Chad comfort Cat, assumes a secret romance and shouts that Chad only cares about her, an accusation that detonates their fragile trust and sends Thomas running headlong into danger. Misread signals unbroken trust. Jennifer and Thomas witness Chad's protective catch as Cat falls into his arms, an image tailor-made for misunderstanding amid Salem gossip and Halloween adrenaline. The show leverages the ambiguity-esque versus romanchetto deepen Thomas's adolescent fury, pushing him from resentment to reckless flight in seconds. Rachel's influence and escalation. Rachel's counsel to Thomas that Cat must pay primes the prank and cranks up the emotional thermostat between the teen duo, who have been drifting into darker schemes under stress and grief. Fan chatter has fanned wilder rumors like Rachel accidentally shooting Thomas, but the verified forward-looking material anchors the accident to the street incident after Thomas bolts from Chad. The knife and the lab coat. The attacker visual knife in hand, Halloween aesthetic drives the square into pandemonium and gives Alex a heroic spotlight as he intercepts the strike aimed at Cat. Social posts have amplified that beat into stabbed, saved taglines, but the spoiler framing emphasizes a near-miss turned rescue, not a confirmed stabbing wound on Cat and the moment shown. Stephanie in the crosshairs. Stephanie's week is a pressure cooker, unmasking scandals, romantic crosscurrents, and now a psychic warning that lands just as someone she cares about collapses in the square. The writing positions her at the junction of three plotlines: Susan's premonition, Alex's injury, and Jeremy-related suspicion, compounding stress and decision-making stakes. The accident's ripple effects. If Thomas survives but faces a long recovery, the show can mine medical, legal, and familial fallout, blame over the pumpkin scheme, questions about parental vigilance, and whether Salem's Halloween security missed obvious warning signs. If the writers choose a fatal turn, the DeMera legacy faces a grief quake that could reshape Chad's arc, Cat's standing, and Rachel's trajectory, turning teen rebellion into tragedy with adult culpability, actor exit or misdirection. The question on every fan's mind is whether a child character's accident signals a recast, temporary write-out, or dramatic feint before a recovery twist, an old soap playbook maneuver that maximizes promo tension. The only on-record guidance is the promo's cliffhanger style, which deliberately withholds resolution while inviting theories about permanent exits versus a coma and recovery storyline. Cat's precarious spotlight. Cat's Halloween becomes a headline magnet, targeted in a public square, thrust into Chad's arms, and cast as a lightning rod for Thomas and Rachel's payback fantasies. Whether she's truly a homewrecker or just a figure caught in Salem's rumor mill, the optics alone are enough to keep her in the narrative blast zone for weeks. Jeremy, Leo, and the noise. Periphery threats. Jeremy's clashes, Leo's intel habits color the background with suspicion and misdirection, contributing to a town-wide sense that any reveal could be weaponized. Even if Jeremy isn't the driver in Thomas's incident, the atmosphere of accusation thickens the plot and keeps viewers second-guessing motives and masks during the Halloween arc. Hospital vigil and next steps. Expect the hospital to become the emotional centerpiece. A rapid trauma response, anxious relatives, and raw exchanges that circle back to the accusations that set this chain reaction in motion. The show loves bedside confessions and guilt-fueled reconciliations, so watch for Chad's reckoning, Jennifer's protectiveness, and potential legal scrutiny over the prank components. What to watch this week? The exact sequence from the square to the street, who chases, who freezes, and what the camera lets you hear before the impact lands. The first medical status line the show releases for Thomas, and how it frames risk brain trauma versus internal injuries versus non-specific critical condition. Whether Alex regains consciousness quickly and if Stephanie's choices pivot once his status stabilizes or worsens. Final word. All signs point to a high-stakes week where a split-second decision tears open DeMera family wounds and thrusts Salem into a crisis that may permanently alter several characters' paths. Regardless of whether the accident ends in survival or unthinkable loss, keep eyes on the hospital scenes, the fallout from the Halloween rescue gone sideways, and the show's careful ambiguity about Thomas's ultimate fate to see how far Days is willing to go in this arc. Part 2, Are the Kids Okay? Salem's Halloween chaos turns into an emotional reckoning. It was supposed to be a calm autumn afternoon in Salem, pumpkins, laughter, and the faint chill of October air. But as always, peace never lasts long in this little town. Beneath the cheerful orange glow of Halloween, hearts were breaking, tempers were rising, and old wounds were threatening to reopen. Marlena's breaking point. At the Horton household, Marlena had hoped for a light-hearted day with young Rachel. The two sat together carving pumpkins, surrounded by the scent of fresh pumpkin pulp and flickering candles. For a while, it seemed almost normal, a moment of warmth and routine. But as Rachel began to complain about Mr. Horton, her childish words carried a sting. Marlena's patience, already worn thin by recent stress, snapped. In an uncharacteristic burst of anger, she scolded the girl sharply, demanding that she give Mr. Horton a chance. Her voice trembled not from anger alone, but from something deeper. The guilt of past failures, the fatigue of always being the one to hold everyone else together. It wasn't just about Mr. Horton. It was about control, respect, and Marlena's own slipping sense of stability. After the tense moment passed, she softened, gave Rachel a small smile, and decided to drop her off at the pumpkin patch with Jeremy, a safe, cheerful place, or so she thought. But in Salem, even the pumpkin patch can become a battleground for emotions. Thomas and Chad struggle with loss. Across town, Chad DeMera faced a different kind of Halloween heartbreak. His son Thomas had quietly refused to celebrate the holiday. No costume, no candy, no joy, only a small boy drowning in grief and guilt. Chad, ever the devoted father, tried to understand. Thomas, still mourning his mother Abigail, seemed to believe that happiness was a betrayal, that smiling meant forgetting her. But Chad knew better. He knelt down, took his son's hand, and gently said, "Don't punish yourself for surviving." It was a powerful moment, a father trying to save his son from the same pain that haunted his own nights. Eventually, Chad convinced Thomas to come along to the pumpkin patch, hoping it might help heal a little of what time had yet to touch. But the reunion with Rachel proved anything but healing. Rachel's cruel words. Rachel, already upset by Marlena's earlier scolding, clung to Thomas the moment he arrived. Her words were sharp, manipulative, far beyond her years, a reflection of the chaos she'd absorbed from the adults on her. She whispered that Thomas needed to keep hurting his dads so that he wouldn't go back to Cat. The innocence of childhood was gone in that moment. Those words, twisted and cruel, were like a knife to Thomas's heart. The poor boy, already fragile, looked crushed. Once again, Rachel's pain became someone else's wound, and Salem's quiet afternoon turned darker than any Halloween night could ever be. The bookstore's grand reopening and a grand reveal. Meanwhile, across town, the much-anticipated grand reopening of the book club bookstore was underway. The store had been remodeled, stocked with new titles, and buzzing with excitement. Marlena, still shaken, arrived with Chad. The two hoped the event might lift their spirits. Inside, Johnny was helping direct the crowd, while Bonnie Lockhart stood eagerly near the front, thanks to a special favor from Alex Kiriakis. Everyone seemed in high spirits, but beneath the surface, drama was brewing as always. Julie Williams, ever the gracious hostess, welcomed the guests with her signature charm. "Thank you all for coming to celebrate the grand reopening of our beloved book club," she said, smiling brightly. "Tonight, we also reveal the true identity of our mysterious author, Anastasia Sands." The room buzzed with whispers. Who was Anastasia Sands? Was it someone famous, someone scandalous? When the announcement came, all eyes turned to the stage. A figure stepped forward, masked, caped, and calm. Slowly, she removed her disguise. "Stephanie Johnson!" Gasps echoed through the crowd. It was Stephanie, the woman everyone thought they knew, now revealed as the secret author whose emotional stories had captured Salem's heart. Reactions and fallout. The applause was loud, but the looks were louder. Alex Kiriakis, always dramatic, rolled his eyes and muttered to Chanel Dupree, "Of course Chad's the only ex shocked by this." Typical. Stephanie's reveal wasn't just about fame, it stirred old feelings, reopened rivalries, and reminded everyone that secrets in Salem never stayed buried for long. As the crowd began to mingle, Marlena and Julie slipped away to chat. Julie, ever the schemer with a heart of gold, spoke about the book club's new direction, its upcoming grief discussion groups, literary therapy sessions, and community talks. But her true motive was something more personal. Julie wanted Marlena to join one of the groups. She knew that behind the doctor's calm smile lay exhaustion and sorrow. The great doctor, Marlena Evans Salem's rock, had been carrying far too much for far too long. But Marlena, as always, deflected. "I appreciate it, Julie," she said softly, "but I don't think I'm the one who needs help." Julie just smiled knowingly. "Sometimes, dear, it's the strongest among us who need it most." Will Marlena finally seek help? As the night came to a close, Marlena stood by the window, looking out at the children running through the streets with their pumpkins and costumes. Their laughter echoed faintly, but it didn't reach her heart. She thought of Rachel, of her outburst earlier, of Chad's struggles, of Thomas's pain, and of her own burden. The question lingered, one she could no longer avoid. If she couldn't help herself, how could she keep helping everyone else? The great irony was clear. Salem's most trusted therapist might now be the one who needed therapy the most. And as the shadows deepened outside, Marlena whispered softly to herself, "Are the kids okay?" But perhaps this time, she should be asking, "Is she?"